Got some really retro music coming up today. That is the Ship Ship song by Cher.
This is Eye on Education on Dubai Eye 103.8.
Sponsored by Repton School, Al Barsha. Exemplary British education for ages 3 to 18, where ambition is nurtured and potential is unlocked.
Talking career choices for kids and teens this hour. And actually, fittingly, while I remember, I need to tell you that every Friday after the business breakfast, Tom Urquhart and the Virtue Zone team sit down with Dubai's business owners to learn, to debate, to celebrate their wins. That is starting up with Virtue Zone. It's on Fridays from 10 a.m. on Dubai Eye 103.8 and worth listening to with your older kids because there's some really interesting stories on there about how people have come to have the careers or the businesses that they have. And I think that is the question that we are asking at the moment, is how we go about doing that, how we identify the correct path for ourselves. Now, we're talking about this after Emirati businessman Khalaf Al Habtoor reignited a long-standing question, which is, are young people actually ready for life after education? Now, he's the chairman of the Al Habtoor Group, and he was speaking about his early days in business and about his son's career, which was very interesting because despite his background and his wealth, he started out washing dishes in a hotel kitchen. Now, Mr. Al Habtoor says he believes we need to integrate those sorts of work experiences into education and not wait until our kids graduate. But of course, finding those opportunities for our kids here in the UAE can be maybe a bit trickier than in some of our home countries. So I am joined today by Audrey Hamitner. She is from the Bedrock programme, which focuses on future readiness, on helping kids find the right paths for them based on their values and their skills. And we're sort of looking at what that could mean for guiding families. And Audrey, you were saying before the break about maybe thinking about outside the box in terms of looking for opportunities for our kids to get hands-on experience, maybe with charities, with animal shelters, with friends of us who maybe have an opportunity for the kids to help out at the weekend. And I wonder, how often do families come to you where they have maybe instilled that idea in their kids, where they do want their kids to have that experience, but that they're maybe struggling to find it? Because it's not necessarily the case that just because the opportunities aren't readily available, that families aren't considering it, that families don't want it, right?
No, it's true. I think there's a number of things that I've seen in my practice. One is it generally is Western families that are looking for, and then when I say Western, I mean sort of Western, right? So from Europe, North America, the UK.
Places where part-time jobs were probably common for parents.
Yes, a place where, I don't know about you, but my parents kicked me out to go and find my first part-time job.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they wanted me to learn the value of the money that was coming into the house. And that is a cultural thing. It is not something that a lot of Emirati families come to me and ask, hey, how can we instill these type of values into our children? And then there's the concepts here where, you know, the people who are doing those jobs are people who are earning a living for families here and back home. And so for an employer to then switch gears and start looking at offering part-time opportunities, they need to think about the school days and all the extracurriculars that we fill our children's days with. And they need to think about the impact, or we need to think about the impact of that on the segment of the economy here that actually want to do those jobs and depend on them for livelihood. So it's a little bit more nuanced than where we're from. But that being said, it doesn't change the fact that those who do ask are looking. And in situations where it's not easily identified here, we have to look back home. We have to find alternative ways and means. And interestingly enough, if you leave it up to the young people and you give them the space to start to explore, there have been some really interesting ideas that they've come up with themselves, right? So everything from creating websites, rudimentary, I give you, but for causes, to setting up GoFundMe pages for friends back home, to tutoring services for siblings of friends. Like there are ways that allow them to start to think, and you can sort of guide them on what could make sense, looking at ways that are not necessarily paid so you don't end up with any legal issues, right?
Yeah.
So it's about volunteering and adding value in places that they think are important to them to add value
Absolutely.
to.
And as you say, the idea that you can maybe do these things in your home country over the holidays, I think in my head, and I wouldn't imagine that I'm alone in this, that seems like something that older kids do. You know, maybe when you're 17, 18, or you're into university, maybe you would look for that summer job. But actually, my son was home staying with my parents over the summer because my husband and I were both working. He's 12, he's old enough that he can do unaccompanied. So he went back and he spent 5 weeks in the UK without us. And I think probably the highlight of those 5 weeks was him going out one morning with his older cousin on a paper round. And he took half of the papers, he delivered half of the papers, and he got half of the money. And I think it was about 50 dirhams. But he was so thrilled with himself for those few days that he got to have that little job. And you could see him grow with it and feel taller because he'd taken responsibility and he'd done something. And I guess it's only just occurring to me that perhaps that's something he could do for 3 or 4 weeks when he's staying with my parents, that doesn't need to be something that's a permanent arrangement. But it is just having, as you say, the capacity to think a bit differently. And it's interesting, like the questions that are coming in here, Safis is saying, are there platforms here for jobs for younger students? Meher is saying, can you guide parents about how we can help our 13-year-olds get interested and understand the importance of exploring work and skill experiences? So I guess what you're saying is it's about thinking about it a little bit differently, rather than thinking about jobs, maybe thinking about where they can feel that responsibility.
It's the experiential learning, right? So the responsibility comes when they find, or we help them find, an experience linked to something that's important to them, or that they at least have an interest in, where they're left to feel like they have a responsibility. Not where they're left to feel like, you're just here to do that. Nobody cares. If you do it or not, it doesn't matter. Then it falls flat. Nothing is gained. But when that little girl who opted to offer her services to calm nervous dogs at the vet,
Which is adorable.
feels the responsibility because the dog is nervous
Yeah.
and she's making that dog feel better. And the owner is saying thank you. And at times she gets a tip. And the owner of the veterinary clinic now knows people are talking about the little helper that makes the experience all the more, and he doesn't have to pay for it. Yeah. All of these things means that when she leaves after her shift on Saturdays, she feels like, guess what I did today?
Yeah.
Guess who I met today? And she has stories, and she feels that responsibility. Right? If she doesn't go, she tells her parents, "Oh no, but such and such is coming back with this little dog, and I need to be there. I need to see how it's going. I need to, what if someone needs me today?" And it's about developing that sense of responsibility, and also connecting work with a positive experience. And that's what a lot of young people don't see. They see parents slogging it off. They see they get home, they're tired. They see, you don't have time for me because of work. They see it's a holiday, but my parents have to work, so I have to X, Y, and Z.
They don't see the personal
positive
rewards.
Element or the reward of work, besides the money that we bring home for you to live and sustenance, is that burning excitement that you've done something good in your society.
Yes.
And in Canada, we do a lot of volunteer. I used to help out in a soup kitchen, feeding homeless. I used to take care of young kids for the Sunday school. It was just built in.
Yeah.
But that's because those societies don't have enough people doing those types of works. So it sort of feeds into creating that type of adult that wants to contribute in that way. I think what Mr. Habtoor was talking about is, if you create the true resonance for the experience of work, it means more.
Yeah.
It means more. And then you end up with young people that are in your work environment that move up, that understand and have empathy for what people did before. And it doesn't matter if it's the little girl in the veterinary clinic, and when she moves on and has her job, she'll recognize, oh, that was customer service. Oh, that was, connecting with customers. A bit of it is marketing. She will slowly be able to put these things together as she's writing a CV and she has her first experience.
Absolutely.
As she's interviewing with someone, and she can talk about how she impacted their business or the experience of their customers. It's here. We just need to find it differently.
Absolutely. And I think, we will revisit this conversation with you, I think, in future about how we help our kids identify those values as well, what questions we as parents should be asking to help them find that. But in the meantime, now that I'm out of time with you, Audrey, if anyone is listening to this and thinking that they have questions about their own teens, send me the word teen on the text 4001. I will put you in touch with Audrey Hammett from the Bedrock programme. Thank you so much, Audrey.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Dubai Eye 103.8's Weather Check.
Sponsored by Air Arabia.